Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. Anyone who wants to find me out there on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you can find me at Justin Bizzarro. Again, that's Bizzarro. Welcome to Justin the Food Entrepreneurs podcast, everyone. I'm excited today. I've known Jason for quite a while now. I'm very excited. Jason is the owner and founder of Super Dogs and Super Yum right now. He's from Douglas, Georgia, which is located in Coffee County, as we just found out right before we started recording, which I think we'll get into. But Jason, so first tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you sort of became a food entrepreneur and what your background is.
Well, my background, I live in South Georgia. I have it's a lot of agriculture where I live, so that's what I did growing up. Kind of just happened into the food business almost by chance, and I kind of took the ball and ran with it. So I had an opportunity, I did it, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
I think it's pretty cool because a lot of people, the world runs towards burgers, for example. So it's for people to go into hot dogs. And actually, there's some cool facts about a lot of people have started off, and entrepreneurs have started off exploring their business on a smaller scale and doing what you're doing, which I love. So tell me about why hot dogs, why that passion, why in Douglas, Georgia? I mean, just give me the real whole rundown of sort of your DNA and your mindset of how you launched this thing.
Okay. Well, I have some ties to the business side of it that made me go into the hot dogs, and some sentimental sides. I'll go back and tell you a quick story that my grandmother, I called her Granny. She that was the only thing I used to eat actually when I was little. So right now my daughter only eats chicken, but for me it was hot dogs. But that's not the reason why I went into the hot dog business. It was just more of the business side of things. For me, it was convenient because I was a single-person operation. After looking at some of the groups in Facebook, a lot of the people that do similar things, like food trucks and things like that, they have multiple people and they can do multiple things. Some have big operations, very nice facilities and trucks that are, very pricey. For me starting out, I didn't have that. I wanted to limit my expenditures. I kind of wanted to go big right at the beginning, but my brother, I have two older brothers, and my brother was giving me a suggestion to kind of start small and see how it goes, which was good advice. It's good advice because there was a learning curve, and you can do as much research as you want on things like that, but nothing teaches like experience, and it was the same for me. So I had to learn, and so as far as hot dogs go, it was just a convenient thing that also the health department, Department of Environmental Health, required certain things in my area, and so it was a kind of a made to heat up kind of a food. I had to have they didn't quite know what to do with me because I had just only a hot dog cart, and it wasn't an enclosed area. So with my setup, I could only do a few things. Rethermalization is what they call it, or at least that's what my Department of Environmental Health contact called it. So I went with that, and a few other things, sausages and things, big size hot dogs, and other things, kind of like the lunch hour crowd mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about you now you've decided to do this. Like, you're all in now. You're going in for the cart. Like, how do you choose to make yourself different, number one? And number two, how do you decide how to vary it enough every day that you keep coming back, people keep coming back every day? Or is it that people just come getting their staple thing 2 to 3 days a week? I mean, I don't know, but I've got to imagine that if you're different, you probably have your loyal customers, but you also have the people that are looking for something a little different every day.
So I was just looking to survive.
Yeah.
My market is very small.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be as much foot traffic in Douglas, Georgia, as there is in Macon, Georgia, or Atlanta, bigger towns. Some people might be able to set up their vehicle or their food truck, for example, hot dog cart, and in the public area. I tried that. And limiting my expenditures, I didn't want to travel a long distance away from where I was. So I tried to stay right around where I lived in Douglas. And what happened to me was foot traffic is different than car traffic, and there just wasn't enough foot traffic where I lived. People would look at my setup, they would see my signs and drive right on by, you know. And I had some really good locations, but it didn't ever work out for me. So what I decided was to experiment, and in my area, what worked the best was work facilities like distribution centers, people that do not have long lunch hours. There's quite a few places where they don't have time to go get something to eat at the McDonald's or whatever's in your town. They just have to eat something quick. And people get tired of vending machine food.
Absolutely.
But there was a problem on my end too, which was the kind of a short menu. I have a short menu, so I only have a few things. So I figured people are going to get tired of eating the same thing if I go to the same place. So what I ended up doing was, it was a conscious choice on my part to rotate my locations. There's one big facility that I go to, and I try to hit every shift. Some of them are different times, but most of them are during the lunch hour. And some of them are in the evening. So I do that sometimes as well. And then a couple of days I go to different locations, which, you know, I was able to stretch that out, and I get this same customers come almost every day. You know, when I go to the Tuesday location, I get them every time. They keep coming. So as far as variation goes, to answer that question, I haven't really varied it very much, except for kind of the chips and cookies type thing.
Yeah.
I try to vary that.
So, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. I mean, outside of this podcast, but I'm always curious because I'm adventurous a little bit, but I like my staples also. So is most of the time I imagine, sorry about that in the audience, I just hit the microphone with my hand. I'm sure you just got a loud thud in your ear. But it's I mean, I'm like a sauerkraut type person. Sometimes I like mustard, sometimes I don't. Kind of a purist. I like my hot dog the same. Gosh, I bumped the mic again. And but I talk with my hands. Sorry, audience, if anyone's seeing it on video, you can see I'm an Italian and my hands fly all over the place. But it's but so I mean, do people usually go for the staples? I mean, how are they adventurous? And you mentioned a little bit about sausages and hot dogs. I mean, do you offer variation? I mean,
Yes, I get my biggest seller are regular hot dogs, and I found out pretty quickly that people want a combo, and so I made it kind of a combo deal with a drink and either a chip or cookie or something like that. And then I think I lost what I was thinking about.
The sausage, maybe?
Oh, yes. My biggest seller is the hot dog, and then I do offer a large hot dog. Like, it's not really a foot long, but it's a bigger hot dog. And then sausage dog would be my number 2 seller. It didn't always was that way, but sausages, people like sausages. And I find that most people, I've gotten to where I know what they want when they're coming up there. And they usually don't even have to say, but, 1 or 2, that's it. And so it's kind of like, remember Norm coming into Cheers.
I know.
Always know what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, generally now people know you're coming. They know your schedule. They come in. I mean, do you find that routine, that people's faith in you knowing that you're there when you're moving around, that helps out the business and that helps gain traction in those areas as well, seeing you there all the time?
Yes, and surprisingly, I was surprised quite a bit because people would come up to me and they would tell me that they always look forward to me coming. They would talk about me, about what day it is they were going to get hot dogs that day. And, of course, that made me feel great.
Absolutely.
That makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm serving good food, something that they enjoy also and that they're looking forward to. So that makes me feel really good that I'm doing my job like I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And there's in food, it does ultimately come down to taste.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about price a lot up and down, and that is, and you want to make sure you're giving value for your food and you're hitting the price point of your customers and what those customers are economically, what they're willing to pay. But if you have good food within and you've matched those criteria and that's what it is, that's the end game, that's your icing on the cake. Everything else, that loyalty means a lot. And so for you, where do you go from here now? I mean, you've sort of built this thing. We've talked about you're starting off small, which
Mm-hmm.
means you're having the growth mindset.
Yes.
To grow. And with that being said, and we've talked a little bit about, marketing and advertising and what that means to you and sort
Mm-hmm.
of the way your mind works. And I can tell you're very internal and strategic in your mind and the way you go about things, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I try to be.
And, let's talk about a little bit about this. Don't give away the farm, but let's talk a little bit about, a lot of entrepreneurs, truly you have to be internal most of the time. I think it's hard to be external because you bounce around so many thoughts, chase so many rabbits down the proverbial rabbit hole.
Yeah, you can dig yourself into a big mess if you do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Let's chase a rabbit.
Okay. Usually I find that I talk too much.
No, that's not going to be a problem on this podcast.
Okay, well, I'll try to rein myself in just a little bit. And also I want to be, try to answer your question as best I can. But as far as, let me get more comfortable here for just a moment.
Yeah.
I lost it. What was the?
We were talking about marketing and
as far as
mindset.
Yes, as far as marketing, I do have some limitations on that. I went for the basic stuff first, but you can go wild with a marketing budget, but you have to understand who your market is. And what I mean is, if I'm only serving a certain group of people in a certain place, that maybe you can see me from traffic driving by, but maybe you can't. Marketing like a radio advertisement wouldn't really do me much good.
Exactly.
More signage might help. So I try to think about things like that. I'm not turned off to any one kind of marketing, but some kinds of marketing are more effective than others. I've kind of thought about, as far as the marketing goes, when things get bigger, you want to hit people with multiple kinds at the same time. That was something I've always remembered. So hopefully I can get to that part one day. And what I want to go towards the future, what I'm aiming towards, I made some monetary goals each year, and I want there to be stable income.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll back up and kind of include what I did from the start, which was I got people familiar with me. So I spent some times at certain locations, maybe for a week at a time. But then after a certain period of time, I noticed that the numbers would drop. So that's when I started juggling my locations. I would go maybe one day a week at one place, and then people would be looking forward to me coming.
Yeah.
So they were, leave them wanting. Don't stay too much longer than necessary, and then people don't want it anymore. That sort of thing.
And the reality is, even if people are going out to eat, they're not going to McDonald's 5 days a week, or to whatever, a Chick-fil-A, or whatever it is that you're trying to run out and cram in during lunch. So they like the variety anyway. So you're basically giving them the ability to not choose all the time. It's just becoming part of the way you do it. They get to choose you when you're there, and when you're not there, you're not there. So they're getting variety regardless of having to make a choice.
Well, I agree with that. I guess I was going a little more simple, because I figured that the bottom line, the as far as the dollars coming in,
correct,
people would get turned off if I was at my busiest place of the week every day of the week. They would get turned off pretty quickly because of my short menu. I only have a certain number of things. But going back to those other people out there that may be listening, if your menu is greater and you've had success at one location, I encourage you to do that. It's a lot easier that way. But in my case, I was in that smaller market. I feel like a little bit smaller of a market that can support. They couldn't quite support what I was trying to do, so that's what I did to kind of help myself out.
Yeah, I understand. So I think you talked about building loyalty. So you went to places, people are now familiar with you. You're part of the brand, the Super Dawg. We can talk about designing logos 1,000 times, but you have a logo, but people are obviously now looking for you also, because you're part of that brand. So you mentioned moving around and stuff like that. So explain to me the logistics of how you manage that. Like, you're going to different locations all the time. So are you managing different volumes based on your location? I mean, we don't need to get into exact details, but more or less, like, every day you're having to juggle it based on the park you're going to, and how do you get there? How do you get all your stuff there?
Well, my setup is built on a trailer.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to hook it to my vehicle and move it to wherever I need to. And then I keep other things in the back of my vehicle. I have a cover over the back of the bed of the truck which was a business expense. I considered it because I can carry a lot more things in the back of the truck if it's covered up, and I don't have to worry about rain, that sort of thing. So I keep my cooler back there, propane, supplies, that sort of thing. And I just, it's just me and my wife, and we have 3 kids, so I do have to drop off my kids in the morning at the school. I come back, I get ready. I make stuff fresh in the mornings, like my coleslaw. I know you're big on coleslaw, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love coleslaw.
Kidding. I'm just
kidding. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
I was joking. I thought you didn't like it.
No, I do. There's not much I don't like, honestly.
Okay, well, anyway, I make the stuff fresh every day, which I find that coleslaw in particular, if anybody's listening, I've tried to make it last, but it's never the same. It's never the same. If you make it each day, it's going to be 10 times better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things on a hot dog, actually. Well, and I like sauerkraut too. Mm-hmm. That's why the mustard is like, because I kind of like those things, and I'm more of a mayonnaise-based person anyway, not ketchup, and mustard somewhere in between, depending on my food. But I do like hot dogs. Just a side note, like one of my favorite things growing up, I played a lot of golf. Mm-hmm. It was something I did in between playing soccer or to fill summers here and there. And but my favorite thing was to eat 2 hot dogs between rounds. I mean, it's just like, it felt like a rite of passage of completing 9 holes, So it was part of the reward system that I tried to do. And I was a kid, so, I was stuck at the golf course either way till my parents came back and picked me up, or the girl who watched me or helped my parents during the summer. So that was my food. And my parents just gave me enough to make sure I could get those 2 hot dogs, a bag of chips, and a soda, so I didn't have any more to blow or on anything else. Mm-hmm. But it was, I think what I like about it, and what we don't concentrate enough on the hot dog, because now we have this burger boom. You have the Five Guys, you have the and my particular interest in you, Jason, and sort of what you're doing with your brand and your mindset, and what I see is that you do have the Five Guys, the Smash Burgers, the whatever other burger companies there are, Shake Shack. They've concentrated on the burgers, and they're good markets. Shake Shack, I think, maybe has a hot dog, and Five Guys too, but it's not their core business. And it is an American pastime, as well as internationally in Europe, the sausages and stuff like that, particularly out of Germany. And so the thing is with the right variations, we have seen some of these like Chicago hot dogs and places do it, but on a broader scale, it's part of what we do on our barbecue when we're in the summer. But hot dogs are an easy way for us to spread a hot dog and whatever we want on top of it, and hand delivered into our mouth. So I feel like it's this pastime, and it's something that, with the right things that are going on in the world, that more people are going to go back to these things as a comfort food, and they're going to see it as hot dogs really aren't that bad for you. Like we say they are, people worry about it, but no, hot dogs are actually just great. You load it up, you can put coleslaw on them. They're a great way to get protein. Okay, just like burgers, it should be a fast thing we go in, fast casual, fast whatever. And so what I like about your business and what your mindset is in our conversation, your growth mindset, is you see that there is a bigger picture here for the things you are doing around hot dogs, for example.
Right.
And so, let's talk a little bit more about where the future lies.
Okay. Right now, I had the idea at the beginning of the year. I had my monetary goals, and I wanted to be consistent, and I wanted to meet a certain number, okay? And then on top of that, my business is usually Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday, I try to go once a month and do something extra,
Yeah.
And it could be anything. I mean, it could be a birthday party, or it could be at the state park, or, it could be downtown in the city where I live. They have a thing once a month for small businesses. They can do that. So I try to do something once a month at least, and that way I don't quite get worn out.
Yeah.
Because if I was doing something every weekend, I'd probably want to take another day off during the week. But as far as my goals, I have been able to meet almost all my goals this year so far. I have a few left. I'm trying to work out. But, as far as growing, I can grow, I believe, in a couple of different directions, because I have a specialized topping for one of my hot dogs, and it was popular. And so what I decided I wanted to do, I said I was going to try to jar this item, and so that went down a rabbit hole all on its own. So I have taken some time and tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. I failed several times on that one side of my business to try to move this item, this jar. It's actually called candied jalapenos, which a lot of people did not know what it was when I was selling
Delicious.
it on my hot dog cart. But I said, they're great. You can try them on anything, which you really can. I didn't try them on hot dogs first, but I liked them so much that I decided I'm going to include it. And what that did was it made my hot dogs interesting. It was something that not everybody has. Other people have ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, and they can make a good hot dog. But for me, I'm the only one that I know of that has that on there. And it was something that I could sell individually, person to person. And I said, you know what? I think this stuff could move forward and be something even bigger. And so that's when I started looking around and trying to study all of the different food laws, what you can do, what you can't do. And it is different sometimes state to state.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure Justin knows way more about that than I do. But
every business is different. Every county is different. Your experience is probably way different than mine anywhere else.
Right. So that was my goal.
Yeah.
And that was about, 3 years ago. I started to try to go down that road to try to expand my business. I have thought about expanding my business with another person and another cart, because realistically, hot dog carts aren't that expensive when you compare that to a fully dressed food truck.
Absolutely.
Food
agree.
trucks are, in my opinion, they're pretty expensive. Not as expensive as a restaurant, but hot dogs, it's something that most people in America can do. So that would be another option for me. If I keep the same list of things that I sell and just go for more volume, which would be multiple locations at the same time, then that would have to hire somebody to do that, to run one cart while I run the other one, or vice versa, or my son get interested.
Yeah, there you go. Start building the legacy.
Right.
The family, and I think that's what it is how, now that you know the business, can you replicate it where you've defined all the things out, which I'm sure you have, where you can then pass it on to someone where they can at least they operate the business to a level of efficiency that would still be good for you to keep growing if it were more than one person. And I agree with you, because on the other hand, if you go to New York City, you see how many falafel carts, shawarma carts, hot dog carts, so on and so forth there. But I do agree that if it's done properly and the brand that you're building and the time that you've taken at the beginning to start off small and learn is essential in that, because you've yourself had to do the business, do the cart, move around, get the experience, understand what it's like to build it, how important the person running it is to that experience with the clients and the personality. Because it's not like a restaurant where there's waitresses running back and forth. It's you only have so much time with that client. You don't have their full lunch time. You interact with maybe 2 seconds while they order, and then the reputation is also not only in that interaction, but then the delivery of that good food while you're also trying to interact with other people.
Yes.
So. Yes.
I found it was about 180 degrees from what I thought it was going to be. I don't really consider myself a people person. It doesn't come easy to me, but it's something that I work towards. I work towards trying to be nice, but trying to be pleasant, and it was something that I've worked on, and I've tried to get a little bit better, and I understand from a customer's point of view what they're coming and what they're expecting. They want the food to be clean, and they want what they're looking at to be clean and pleasant, and they don't want it to be too expensive, or they're not going to come back as often. So I was going for that, and I was also going for the person serving it being pleasant. So I try to be nice, and also what I strive to do also is not just slapping it together and just throwing it together like it's a mess. I might have a long line of people, but each person in front of me, I try to take it to make their food look nice.
Absolutely.
And I always get comments about that. Multiple people behind the person ordering, they'll change their order. They'll change their order because they see what I made and they said, I want that. You know? So I try to, if I'm using coleslaw, for example, just the extra step of making sure it's not wet.
Yeah.
I mean, you can avoid that to a certain amount, but and
the quicker you deliver it, then I got to imagine the less wet the bread is, right? So if they're getting 2 hot dogs, you probably make the one with the coleslaw last.
I try to do. I don't get that caught up into it. I do it as quick as I can, but at the same time, I try to not. Some people are very particular, as you know, in the food industry. They want it to be, they don't want their bread wet, or they want their ketchup and the mustard in the bottom of the bun.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've heard all different kinds. So it doesn't. It's not a problem for me whenever people request that, but sometimes they have to remind me. That's the only problem I've run into, is that they want me to remember when they're one of 500 people. So I try to remember, but as best I can do. But I'll have to ask them, what did you want? I'm sorry, I remembered part of it, but I couldn't quite remember. You'll have to tell me again, So you have to approach that kind of carefully as well.
Well, and it's better than giving them the wrong thing, I think, probably 100%, at least from my own experience. So we had talked a little bit about, I was going to jump on to something. We had talked about next steps, and you talked about both expanding the carts, and then we talked about, the canning of some of your items that you had. But there was a third one. So is there another one that you sort of got rattling around in there, or?
As far as expanding the business?
Yeah.
I'm always open for learning new things. The other things that I was thinking about was adding other things to go along with the jalapenos, as far as then you're building a brand.
Yeah.
Sort of my business name was focused around hot dogs in the beginning. So I I went ahead and made the choice to change my legal name to something a little bit more broad because I was making something that wasn't directly related to hot dogs. You can put it on hamburgers, or you could put it on Ritz crackers, or eat it right out of the jar. I like them on Tostitos myself, but so I did that, and other items as well to build that brand, like so I just kind of went back and decided some of my favorite recipes. Now, this would be stuff that wouldn't necessarily go with hot dogs, but stuff that I always would enjoyed and what I thought was unique. So I always like the reaction when I tell people, "You make what?"
Yeah.
You make, what is that? I've never heard of that. And you'll find that in different places, people have stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
It's just what we've been exposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think exposure is a big part of it, and expanding our palate becomes part of our understanding and tolerance, and exposing ourselves to more. I think if we do it through food, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this a little bit. What is your favorite hot dog combo? Like, if you make yourself one, what does it look like?
Oh, I can go a couple different ways.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
All right. Well, the big hot dog I have is an all beef hot dogs. I haven't mentioned that, but all my hot dogs are all beef, which I did not think was going to be a big deal at the beginning, but as it turns out, it was a wise business decision. But it's an all beef hot dog, quarter pound, and regular bun, ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, and slaw, and then I put a couple of the candied jalapenos on the top.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So, I mean, okay, and what's your best seller?
Oh, well, just ketchup and mustard.
Really?
Yep.
That's it? That's the
regular hot dog.
Okay, and do you do specials here and there, and how do you come up with some of these creative toppings? I mean, I'm really curious because you're expanding yourself, and you come up with little things, the candy jalapenos with mayonnaise, mustard, and ketchup. I mean, that's a. I mean, do you just experiment? Do you experiment with your kids? Do your family?
Yes.
I mean, that's how it goes.
I experiment with the kids, but a lot of times these things are around us all the time. We just never think of it that way. You know what I mean? Like your grandmother's recipe that your family has been making for years and years, and you might think of, well, nobody's interested in that, but they are, you know. And this was something, not a family recipe, that like those jalapenos that I mentioned. It wasn't a family recipe, but it was something that I came into that I said, whoa, you know, this is good. And I have had that reaction over and over again. It makes me feel great, especially if it's something, you know, that I've made. I've put the time into it to make it. So I was like, let's keep doing this. Let's see how far we can go with it. If it's really that good, I think, you know, we can hold it up to the fire and see if it's good enough, you know.
Yeah, and something, I mean, I see something with you. You have a lot of knowledge, and it's in there, and you're very, and your hot dog knowledge, like everyone can probably hear I say hot dog funny. I'm from Maryland, so I don't quite have a Southern accent. I don't quite have a New York accent, and then throw Colorado and Georgia in the mix now, and I'm all mixed up. And so, the hot dog thing is I like what you're doing because I feel there's so much there for you and your knowledge, and whether or not you take it in to be, okay, here's a cookbook per se of all the things you can do with hot dogs or toppings or things, or these are recipes that you know and you do and you've experimented that you yourself won't turn into brands, but maybe recommend other people, because I think there's a knowledge there. I mean, that's one huge way to get something out there and be like, I'm the hot dog man, for lack of a better term. But the other one is the blogging about it of the recipes and the interest that we all secretly have for our enjoyment for hot dogs. I mean, hands down, I will choose a hot dog and a hamburger. Hamburgers are my favorite thing on earth. No problem. Like, one of my only write-ups at Food Service Partners is because I said in front of all the employees I fucking love cheeseburgers. That's how I feel. But I like hot dogs too, and sandwiches. I like the variation you can do with bread and meat and toppings, and so hot dog falls into that love for me, which is part of the reason I love talking to you so much, and why every time you come in here, I'm like, oh gosh, bring Jason, and we'll keep, however we can. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we'll keep moving forward because I believe in what he's doing. But the other thing is I think there's probably, with having children and they're wanting to get involved in the business and social media, and I haven't even asked you that question yet of how you use social media or if you do, but I've got to imagine that there's a world of knowledge here on the way you do hot dogs, or even if it's not directly people coming to your cart, but building that brand awareness and building and grabbing into that hot dog community as an expert of just becoming that person. Like, here's my weekly creation of a hot dog for this week. I'm going to try it on my cart. We're going to see what happens, because it's a matter of taking what we have inside and pushing it outward too. So I love all three of your things. I just thought of those other two just because I know what's in there. And I'm not trying to give anything away, but I do know that if we really look at it, it's an untapped market, and there's not a lot of people with sausage and hot dog experience in the sales side, in the community side. We use them at ballparks. We have them on golf courses, like I just said. But truly making it what it is, like you go into a burger, you can do burgers 10 million ways.
Yes.
Same is true for hot dogs, and same is true for the meat in the hot dog. You can do chicken, turkey, beef. We talked about bison, and so we're going to start to see this layering, and no different than pizza and burgers. This is something we need to look at, especially as we've made them all natural and done things like that, and done the things that you're talking about, and fresh. Your coleslaw is fresh. Those are important things to keep the quality of what we're talking about here. So those are just some cool things, because I like what you're doing and I like your creativity. I
was going to say, I really appreciate the compliment you mentioned about, as far as the knowledge goes. I feel sometimes like I might go on and on. I'm sorry about that if I'm going on and on, but you mentioned like into a cookbook. That was interesting, because I've never really thought about that. Yeah. That's a good point. Maybe I need to start scrapping all these things together and putting it in one compilation, and that would be an interesting thing. But that would be another side of marketing it.
Absolutely.
You're hitting, I guess if we take a step back and went to the marketing side, when people see something on the shelf and then they see something in another area, whether it be on the bookshelf or listening to it on the radio or something on the back of they're printing advertisements on the back of the receipts now. Yeah. That's all a compilation of like marketing. You're getting hit from all directions.
Absolutely.
And I'm no marketing guru either, but I've just tried to read up on things. and kind of educate myself. I'm not an expert, but I try to make the best educated decision.
Yeah. And so this is what I like about this conversation a little bit, is that I think that you've spent a lot of time around this, whether it's ideas for maybe hot dogs themselves or sausages, and expanding that, and then that moving into something. The other thing that I just want to talk about while we're talking about and put out to the audience is we often think that we need to concentrate on one thing in our business. Oh, we need to concentrate on the operations or the co-packing or the whatever. But there's always downtime that we tend to fill with other things at home or stuff, or fill with operations that we don't necessarily need to be operating, or we're just double checking things for the sake of doing it, which is always good. But at some point, doing the things that build your brand, even if you can't honestly see the direct to sales right now, especially with things like social media. We're in a world where we don't know where that brand recognition or those expertise, because while you may not consider yourself an expert, to me, who doesn't do anything with hot dogs, you are my expert. And so that's how do we get that information out there, because there is a world out there that wants to know and has interest in hot dogs, probably their favorite food. We talked a little bit about it. I don't remember if it was before this, but hot dogs are the only thing that you ate growing up, and your daughter's is now chicken. But, so we attach onto these things very strongly, and you have an emotional attachment to it. Plus, you've now built a business to it, so now it's your livelihood, and now it's your baby in another sense and part of your legacy. And so, it's that whole thing is now becoming entirely the Osteen brand, the Super Dog, the Super Yum, the Osteen family brand. All of it's now coming into this because you're an entrepreneur, and I think that it's so cool what you're doing, honestly. And getting the knowledge first and starting off small is absolutely the way to do it. And you don't know it yet, I don't think, but I think the world is thirsting for that knowledge. Hot dogs are a very big thing. And you have kids probably about the age that could just love social media. So
yes, and thank you again for that compliment. I appreciate it very much. I was going to say, sometimes there's a lot of points to hit on when you mentioned that, and I've lost them already.
Take your time.
It's okay. But as far as I don't.
No, I mean, do you guys use social media?
Well, as far as social media goes, I do have a Facebook account, and I have two different ones for my business. One of the ones was for just my hot dog cart, so I originally tried to encourage people, and it grew. Now, the other side of the business was just for the Super Yum Foods brand, and that was one that I took a hands-off approach. I'm just going to say I put it on the label, and when people buy it, I'll tell them, yes ma'am, there's a Facebook page, and I tried to include recipes that would be different than what you might be used to, like a potato salad. Instead of pickles, you chop up the candied jalapenos and put it in that. And a lot of people say, ooh, that sounds good. So that seems to grow quite a bit as well. But, it's in the developing stage. It's not a huge following yet. But I just want to kind of make it as a little bit of a database to see what other things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or on my hot dog side, I might want to include some of the locations where I might be if they were wondering where I was that day. I still have customers that are just general public, and they have my information, so they'll contact me, hey, where are you today? And there's only one location that I go to where it's not really open to the general public, but the other 4 days of the week, they can find me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And so we talked a little bit about the moving around and stuff, and then the social media. So do you publish it then on social media when you're at the open places? Do you communicate that way? Do you manage the account? How?
Yes.
You're doing all of it yourself, I imagine, so.
Yes, as far as the special locations that I go to, I try to make it a point on social media to always include that. Sometimes I go to the state parks, which is not every month. So whenever I do have that, I make sure to put that on social media so people that follow me can see. And I always find that when I really make a good-looking hot dog, I try to take a picture of it and post it online, because that makes a big difference too. If it looks good, it's going to make people hungry.
Yeah, and people like hot dogs. So, I mean, that's part of what I'm asking, because I think that you have such a skill set and you care. And, I mean, we're talking about some of these specialty items like the candied jalapenos, again, which I think I'm very excited for, because I think they're an amazing product. Do you then, when you're experimenting and stuff, do you then do weekly specials so there's always something for the crowd that wants to try something different? I mean, does that ever happen? I mean, it's hard for me to know, because I'm not sure. We talk about the candy jalapenos and how that came about. Does other stuff you just try it and see if it works, or you just put it as a possible add-on and see if people gravitate towards it?
Right now it would be just an add-on.
Yeah.
I am open for making kind of deals certain times of the week, or maybe 1 week of the month, something like that. I am open for that, but I haven't actually gone that route yet. And maybe it's just one of those things. It's kind of like a combo deal for me, is always with chips and a drink. Yeah. And so I try to keep it pretty basic. I even keep it kind of basic on the monetary side, where I don't have to deal with change. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just keep it on the rounded dollar. Yeah. So that also plays into a fact of what I'm what I'm selling. Excuse me.
Yeah, because giving change on top of running a business, if you can just move cash or just a straight line, I agree with you. When you're trying to move people through a line, it's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, there was a trick about that. I have to include, I had to make sure that it was okay with my Department of Environmental Health, but I only keep one hand wrapped, and I make it, I use my utensils, but then my other hand is unwrapped, so I deal with the money with it. Yeah. So that works out perfect.
That's awesome.
It works out great.
Little tricks of the trade.
Yes, yes.
So, where can they find you on social media? What's your handles?
Okay. My hot dog is going to be Super Dawg, DAWG. But there are multiple people with that name. But I'm in Douglas, Georgia. And I also have my my food business name, which would be Super Yum. That's YUM Foods, and you'll see a jar of candied jalapenos on the front there.
Awesome, thank you, Jason, and thank you for coming in today. As we start to wrap things up for episode 176 here. Is there anything you want to share with entrepreneurs out there or the audience that you feel that is something that you learned that you feel would be essential for them to know now, that may have helped you if you would have known earlier on?
People can get inundated with knowledge, and I find that it's not necessarily the knowledge. You just have to pick a starting point. It kind of got thrown in my lap to get started on something, but it's not that you shouldn't fear it. As far as learning a business, there's always going to be a learning curve, and if you accept that there's going to be a learning curve, just go do it. And it's really easy for a person to say that, but honestly, that's true. You just have to go and do it. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Well, thank you, Jason, again for coming in today. Thank you for the audience for listening in. If you like what we're doing here, guys, share the episode. And just as, you know, to get the audience involved, I would love if everyone would email me or DM me on Instagram. What is your favorite hot dog? I'll share it with Jason, and maybe he'll do some pictures on his Instagram accounts for us of some of the hot dogs he'll create. But if everyone sends in your favorite hot dogs, we'll pick a bunch of some of the random yummy ones, and I'll have Jason mix them up for us and do some pictures. So send me your favorite hot dogs, hot dog styles, toppings, whatever it is. You can do that at Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs on Instagram. Again, at Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs. DM us. We'll collect all your photos or ideas for hot dogs or favorite toppings, and we'll get Jason back in, and he'll do some stuff on his Instagram, and we'll have some fun together.
Well, I don't have Instagram.
No Instagram. We'll do some stuff on his Facebook.
Yeah.
There you go. So we'll work on that Instagram. We'll get his kids involved. So there you go. Thank you guys for listening in, and have a great day.
Can we get? I am so embarrassed.